Move to hold UEFA vote on Israel ban delayed while Donald Trump seeks Gaza deal. UEFA had been hearing last week of a growing clamor among UEFA Executive Committee members and within European FAs to kick out Israeli teams. But since then, President Trump has unveiled a 20-point plan for peace to end 2 years of war, with talks underway to secure an agreement between Israel and Hamas for a deal. There is a belief among leaders in European football now that imposing sporting sanctions on Israel would not be the right move in the middle of peace talks. While some hoped for a UEFA Executive Committee vote on Israel, an emergency meeting is not understood to have been called. Trump administration would step in to prevent Israel being banned and stopped from continuing in qualifying for the 2026 Men's World Cup. Holding off on suspending Israel would allow the national team to play matches against Norway and Italy. Norway has been among the most vocal European nations about Israel remaining in sports competitions amid the destruction and devastation in Gaza. Profits from the match in Oslo will be given to help humanitarian workers provide aid in Gaza. But, announcing his squad today, manager Ståle Solbakken declined to discuss the conflict, saying he would only give his views on Israel after the match. A push to ban Israel intensified after a United Nations Commission of Inquiry said Israel has been committing genocide in Gaza. Israel has denied that, insisting it is fighting to eradicate Hamas and return hostages following the October 7, 2023 attacks. The Turkish Football Federation called for Israel to be banned by FIFA and UEFA. Norway's FA opposes a unilateral boycott, insisting that would only benefit Israel's qualification hopes. Israel was admitted as a full member of UEFA in 1994. The country began competing in the Asian Football Confederation in 1954 and qualified for the 1970 World Cup. But the team was then excluded from AFC tournaments from 1974 after countries had refused to play them. There has been no comment from UEFA on talks about banning Israel. The Israeli FA, IFA, hasn't commented this week on attempts to ban teams. But the IFA told that Reebok backed down from moves to end a deal to supply national team kits. Video game maker Electronic Arts to be taken private in record $55 billion buyout. Electronic Arts, EA, is to be taken private under a $55 billion buyout, a record sum for such a deal. Under the terms, private equity firm Silver Lake Partners, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, PIF, and Affinity Partners will pay the video game maker's shareholders $210 per share. The sum represents a premium of 25% on EA's closing share price last Thursday, before the Wall Street Journal first reported that an announcement was close. The transaction is subject to shareholder and regulatory approval. The total value exceeds the $32 billion price paid to take Texas utility TXU private in 2007. Around $20 billion of the purchase price will be made up of financing. There's been a rebound in global deal-making as lower central bank interest rates bring borrowing costs down. The deal for the maker of Battlefield, FC26 and The Sims also represents confidence in the recovery for blockbuster game franchises following a post-pandemic downturn that saw gamers become cautious on their spending. EA's sports portfolio has been its strongest performer due to its global appeal and that in-game spending has remained resilient. YouTube to settle lawsuit with Trump over account suspension. YouTube has agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Donald Trump after it banned his account following the January 6 Capitol riot. The U.S. president was suspended from the Google-owned platform over his role in the insurrection, which saw his supporters attempt to stop Joe Biden's 2020 election win from being ratified. More than 4 years on from the violent scenes that left a police officer dead, court documents filed on Monday revealed that $22 million from the settlement will go towards a trust for Washington, D.C.'s National Mall and the construction of a White House ballroom. The remainder will be paid to other parties involved in the case, including the American Conservative Union. Google declined to comment on the reasons for the settlement, which does not constitute an admission of liability. Mr. Trump's YouTube account has been back online since 2023. Google's parent company Alphabet is the third tech firm to settle with Mr. Trump over what he perceived as an illegitimate muzzling of him online following the riot. He was also suspended from Meta's platforms and Twitter, moves which saw him gravitate towards his own social media platform, Truth Social. The president and his supporters have falsely maintained that the 2020 election was stolen. Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, agreed to pay $25 million to settle Mr. Trump's lawsuit, and X settled for $10 million. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro expands his powers in case U.S. attacks. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has signed a decree to give himself increased security powers should the U.S. military enter the country. The move, announced by the nation's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on Monday, comes as tensions continue to escalate between the two countries. Mr. Maduro has publicly alleged U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration are plotting to oust him. The decree would allow Mr. Maduro to mobilize armed forces throughout the country and give them military authority over public services and the oil industry. It comes after the U.S. deployed a fleet of warships through the Caribbean, which Washington says is to combat drug trafficking through the region. The U.S. has also, in recent weeks, struck several boats it claims were carrying illegal drugs from Venezuela, killing those on board. The legality of this has been questioned by experts. Mr. Maduro has privately attempted to reconcile with Mr. Trump. He sent a letter to his counterpart earlier this month offering to engage in direct talks. Claims that Venezuela played a big role in drug trafficking have been rejected by Mr. Maduro, who says he wants the relationship with the U.S. to be historic and peaceful. However, U.S. military officials are drawing up plans to target drug traffickers in Venezuela. Ms. Rodriguez said, "What the U.S. government, what warlord Marco Rubio is doing against Venezuela, is a threat." Venezuela's military has carried out training exercises with volunteer militia members in recent days. Soldiers have been teaching members of the public to handle weapons for what leaders call a possible U.S. incursion. The powers granted to Mr. Maduro would be valid for a 90-day period, with the option to renew for a further 90 days, according to the nation's constitution. Former assistant to far-right German politician found guilty of spying for China. Jian Ji worked in the parliamentary office of Maximilian Krah, a member of the Alternative for Germany (AfD) party, who sat in the European Parliament between 2019 and 2025. Prosecutors said Mr. Ji, whose full name has not been released in line with Germany's privacy laws, had been working for a Chinese secret service since 2002. Dresden Higher Regional Court heard the German national had been accused of working for a Chinese intelligence service and of repeatedly passing on information on negotiations and decisions in the EU Parliament while working for Mr. Krah between September 2019 and April last year. He was sentenced to 4 years and 9 months in prison. Beijing has denied accusations of espionage in Europe. China's foreign ministry said previously that reports about spying were all hyping up with an aim to smear and suppress China. Prior to the verdict, it said, "Regarding specific cases, we are not aware of the situation of the trial you mentioned." China firmly opposes the sensationalization of the so-called Chinese spy threat and urges the relevant parties to cease spreading rumors, slandering and smearing China, and engaging in anti-China political manipulation. Krah, a controversial figure even within his own party, is currently accused of money laundering and bribery by China during his time in the European Parliament. He rejects the claims and says they are politically motivated. AfD last year banned Krah from EU elections weeks after he told an Italian newspaper not all members of the Nazis' elite SS unit were war criminals. Still, he won a seat in the German parliament earlier this year as part of the party's historic gains in the Bundestag during the national election. Woman pleads guilty to money laundering over £5 billion Bitcoin seizure. A woman has pleaded guilty to money laundering offences over the UK's biggest ever cryptocurrency seizure of Bitcoin, currently worth more than £5 billion. Chinese national Yadi Zhang, 47 years old, who is also known as Jimin Qian, was arrested in April last year after spending years on the run. She first arrived in the UK on a false Street Kitts and Nevis passport in September 2017 after allegedly carrying out a £5 billion investment scam in China involving 130,000 investors in fraudulent wealth schemes between 2014 and 2017. Police first raided her £5 million six-bedroom rented house near Hampstead Heath, in North London, on October 31, 2018. But it was another 2.5 years before investigators discovered more than 61,000 Bitcoin in digital wallets, one of the biggest ever cryptocurrency seizures in the world. The cryptocurrency was worth £1.4 billion at the time, but its value has now risen to more than £5 billion, and the fortune is at the center of an intense battle between the UK government and Chinese investors over who gets to keep it. The seized assets have reportedly been earmarked by Chancellor Rachel Reeves to help plug the hole in the public finances. Zhang was due to face trial at Southwark Crown Court but has pleaded guilty to charges of possessing criminal property and transferring criminal property on or before April 23, 2024. She appeared in the dock wearing glasses and a beige cardigan over an animal print blouse, nodding to confirm her identity before entering her pleas with the help of a Mandarin interpreter. Judge Sally Ann Hales remanded Zhang in custody ahead of sentencing at a later date. Prosecutor Gillian Jones KC said she would not apply to launch confiscation proceedings because of the ongoing proceedings in the High Court. Will Line, the Metropolitan Police's head of Economic and Cybercrime Command, said Zhang's guilty pleas marked the culmination of years of dedicated investigation. This is one of the largest money laundering cases in UK history and among the highest value cryptocurrency cases globally, he said. Zhang's solicitor, Roger Sahota of Berkeley Square Solicitors, said, "By pleading guilty today, Ms. Zhang hopes to bring some comfort to investors who have waited since 2017 for compensation, and to reassure them that the significant rise in cryptocurrency values means there are more than sufficient funds available to repay their losses."